Thank you, Stan. To wrap things up today, we've asked Stuart Clarke to offer some closing reflections. Stuart is the executive director of the Town Creek Foundation and has been since 2004. Prior to joining Town Creek, he was a program officer with the Turner Foundation and development director of the Southern Partners Fund, both in Atlanta. He's also served on the faculty of Williams College in Williamstown, Massachusetts, and on the boards of the Center for a New American Dream, the Environmental Grantmakers Association, and Outward Bound. He is currently a trustee of the Chesapeake Bay Trust. A warm welcome, please, for Stuart Clarke.
So the one area in which I am going to take a little time, maybe my last 3 minutes, is one observation that I wanted to share with you, and it's intended to be a hopeful observation in kind of an open-ended way. So maybe you'll agree it's hopeful, maybe you won't. As I read the volume, as I listened to the conversation, one of the things that I couldn't help but to wonder is, how realistic is it? What are the realistic expectations to have of environmentalists and of environmentalism as we try to address these major challenges? I think implicit in some of the conversation was the notion that we can help environmentalism evolve to a point where it can address these challenges in a serious way. That seems more like a revolution than an evolution to me, and I'm not sure if the likelihood of environmentalism evolving in that way is high enough for us to be investing in that as the place where the leadership and the muscle is going to come from to do what needs to be done. I'm not sure about that. But I think that that's a critical question that we need to ask, that I think is important to think about as we think about what we can expect of environmentalists and environmentalism, and that's ideology. That's ideology. William Rees and Jenny Moore write that the major challenges to sustainability are in the social and cultural domains, and I think that's entirely right. Kathleen Dean Moore and Michael Nelson, in one of the other chapters in the volume, make a point that Naomi Klein has made quite forcefully when they write that climate policy disputes are one manifestation of a division between those who think the primary purpose of government is to bring people together to common action so they can do together what none of them can do alone, and those who think the primary purpose of government is to protect individual freedom of self-development and self-realization. And I think their point, one with which I agree and about which I think we need to engage much more fully, is that the effort to move us in the right direction on these issues takes place on deeply contested ideological terrain. And if we really want to move the trajectory in the way that we need to be able to engage on that terrain. That makes me a little bit anxious about expecting that environmentalists and environmentalism is going to provide the leadership and the muscle that we need, because most of the environmentalists and most of the environmentalism with which I engage as a funder in that space is sort of characterized by kind of a proud ideological agnosticism. This is a belief that environmentalism is at bottom a broadly held value that can override disagreements on a range of other things. That it's a contention that we can agree to disagree about music, about fashion, about sports, about the proper role of government, about the value of the public sphere, but that we can agree on the importance of environmental protection. Now, I'm not suggesting that that's all that I ever see or that is all that's out there, but I do think that that's the dominant strategic orientation within the professional environmental movement. So There are a variety of interesting things about that perspective, one of which is the way that it rejects, without naming, a range of alternative possibilities. It rejects, for example, the idea that the will to protect the environment may be activated by a specific constellation of values and undermined by an alternative constellation of values. It rejects the idea that our ability to protect the environment may be enabled by particular ideological commitments and undermined by alternative ideologies. And in the particular case, it overlooks the possibility that sustainability, the authentic, robust sustainability that we require, may be an emergent property of a more just, democratic, and equal society, and not simply a correction that can be grafted onto any society. I believe that this possibility, that it may in fact be an emergent property of a particular kind of society, is a possibility that's engaged by the contributions of David Orr and Bron Taylor in the volume, and I heartily encourage you to read those. So I think of this as kind of what sort of an environmentalism as this sort of independent, ideologically agnostic movement, and it has a real cost. If we act as if we believe that environmental protection is an independent value lurking in everyone, then the critical questions that we ask wind up being tactical questions. How do we orient our work so as to most effectively and efficiently catch whatever appears to be the dominant stream? If, on the other hand, environmental protection is an interdependent, ideologically inflected value, then it would seem that questions of vision and therefore strategy become unavoidable. And we ask questions about what's the constellation of values that we need to strengthen and how will we do so? What are the ideological commitments that we need to broaden and how will we do so? What is the society that we are striving towards? Who else is moving in that direction? And when, how, and where can we join with them? How, in other words, do we generate a stream that moves powerfully in the direction that we need to go? My sense is that the leadership and the muscle on these critical issues, arguably the critical issues, are going to come from the movement that is asking itself those questions, the movement that is animated by a desire to answer those questions. And my suspicion is that until environmentalists and environmentalism understand their work as preeminently about grappling with these questions, we would probably do well to look elsewhere for the leadership and muscle that we'll need. I do believe, and this is the hopeful part, that this volume and the discussions that it can midwife can help to bring environmentalists and environmentalism and many others, to that understanding of their mission. And so I thank Eric and Tom and Bob and the whole Worldwatch team for bringing your leadership and your muscle to this task. That's